Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I'm going to be bringing to you guys is my top tips to consistently win invasions in New World. Now this is something that I am constantly getting comments about. It's something that I see an awful lot on Twitter, on Reddit, and actually in the in-game chat as well. People are consistently asking, how can I win these invasions? How can my team become more consistent at defending against them? Because, you know, it's expensive to keep continuously upgrading things, getting them downgraded, only to then upgrade them again, etc. on a cycle. So hopefully with the help of this video, you guys are going to be able to successfully defend and consistently win these invasions going forward, as this is something that we've managed to do for about the past 6 or 7 invasions on our server across a few of the guys here that have teamed up on Syndicate, which is our faction at the moment. Now, before we jump into this one, if you are new to the channel, please do make sure that you drop a subscribe down below. We're getting itchingly close to 13,000, so if you guys could help me and support me with that, that would be much appreciated. And other than that, let's jump on with the video here. So starting it off then, it's going to be the setup of the team. This is really important because invasions start pretty easy and then they get pretty crazy really quickly towards the last sort of 10, maybe even 5 minutes. You can pretty much get up to there, and then after that it goes absolutely ham. So these tips should help you and your team do a lot better, more consistently, and obviously get all the way through to the end, eventually winning these. So when you're setting up your team, the setup that we use, that I like to kind of put forward, that as one as the past couple of our own, and as I said, there are a few of the allied ones as well, has been 2 groups left gate, 2 groups on middle gate, 2 groups on the right gate, and 3 groups at the back, with the 10th and final group being a wall flex group. So essentially it'll be ranged DPS, usually bow users, which we'll get onto in a moment. That's another tip. Those guys will rotate round. They'll be using the siege, as well as some of the guys from each gate will obviously be on the siege as well. And they'll be rotating, taking out enemy siege equipment once it does get deployed onto the field. They'll also be getting involved where there's boss spawns, because that's really important to make sure that early doors, you're getting those down as quick as possible to reduce the need to use your repair parts early doors or your siege parts. And that will really help out, and this has worked super well for us. But obviously, if you feel like back gate only needs 2 groups up your one, so you could maybe have 2 groups on the walls flexing and maybe a couple of guys there rotating around, whatever you want to do is absolutely fine. Another crucial thing with this plan is to always pick 3 people who are going to be, you know, collecting your repair parts and doing the repairs on the doors and cannons if needed, but usually we just save all of ours for the doors solely. And this is really important. It needs to be 3 people. I like to put them in the wall flex group, so that the first sort of 10-15 minutes, other than a couple of bisons coming in, which you should call out for them, by the way, they're going to have to just pretty much stay up there, do damage, and then once it gets hectic, they're going to be, obviously, they'll have collected a lot of parts by this point. They'll be able to move around, and they're just going to go around and repair those doors, DPS in between, and continue as they were. So this tends to work well for me, but it's entirely up to you how you would like to do this. What I would recommend, though, is the 3 people that are guarding the inside and doing the repairs as one job. Make sure that they've all got at least 1 ranged weapon, so that they can easily hit from the walls onto any of those bison eggs that do come in, because they can be a little bit of a problem. Now, the next thing here is going to be really important, is to make sure that you're maximizing your damage. And with this, we're going to be looking at corrupted bane weapons. So any weapon that has plus corrupted damage on is really good, and that is just a weapon ability or a perk, whatever you want to call that. Another thing there is going to be really useful is to use dex-based weapons, so things like bows, spears. All of that good stuff is really effective against corrupted enemies, as dexterity does have a bonus damage modifier versus them. So if you're using things like the bow, you're going to see those people dropping upwards of 2, 3, 4 even million DPS or damage total per invasion, which is absolutely nuts, and is going to really help out your team big time. Now, another thing with this is also to use a nature gem or an amber gem, whichever you want to call it, as those also give additional damage towards corrupted mobs. So whether that's, like you see in the footage here, me using it on a spear because I've respect half strength, half dexterity, use the spear there and thrown on the nature gem. This worked really well because it was a corrupted bane spear as well, so it was doing a ton of damage, and obviously coatings, which we'll get onto in a moment. But spear, hatchet, etc., all with the nature gem. Bow is obviously by far the best. If you get a very good corrupted bane bow with a nature gem on, you're just going to be absolutely shredding. So I would certainly recommend trying to get one of those if you can roll dexterity. If not, if you're just going to stick with strength or int, just try to get a weapon that has corrupted bane on. But obviously, if you're trying to maximize and min-max these invasions to consistently do well, I would definitely recommend figuring out either a dex build. Some of the guys in mine have actually even used the harvesting gear because obviously it has dexterity on, and it's worked well. I wouldn't recommend it because obviously you know, that actual resistances are pretty low, but it can be done if you're going to be ranged. You're going to be up on the walls most of the time. Just watch out for the skulls. Now, again, like I mentioned there, with this, you've got your coatings. So for the main DPS weapon, you can use a coating on one. It's called an infused corruption coating, and it increases your damage versus corrupted mobs. You can only use it on one weapon at a time, so if you're using something like the bow and spear, I would recommend getting it on the bow because that's going to do more damage. Whereas, like you can see from the gameplay here, I was using spear and great axe, so I put it on my spear because that does more damage, and I'm using it for the rend and sunder and such like that. So obviously that was the choice there, as it does do more damage generally. So put that one on whichever weapon you're going to be using the most. Other consumables as well, like your stat boost food. So, for example, get an extra dexterity and strength or constitution, whatever you need to finish off your build is always a really, really good plan. Some people kind of miss out on this one, reserve that solely for wars, which I can understand if you are running very, very low. But if you are trying to win these, you are going to want to make use of the stat boost food. It's really, really good and can be super, super helpful. So I would certainly recommend it. And then on top of that as well, you can always get your honing stones on. Again, this is really, really good. A little 7% extra damage with those maximum level, the powerful ones there. It doesn't sound amazing, but topped up with everything else on top of your coatings and on top of your stat boost food, etc. Plus if you're using dex weapons, corrupted bane, you can actually get a pretty good ensemble of stuff going that can give you a huge damage boost overall. So that honing stone just tops it off nicely and will seriously help you clear these mobs a lot quicker. A lot of them, like I say there, should be getting melted way before they even get to the gate, particularly in the first 10 to 15 to even maybe 20 minutes in. So that will really help you to consistently get there. Now, the other thing that you really, really want to pay attention to for yourself and also for all of your teammates is going to be trophies. Always have 3 corrupted trophies up when you're going into these. Always remember to place them in your house before and make sure your team does the same. It's really, really important. It does give you a big damage boost and you can at least get the basic ones. These are pretty cheap on every server if you're going to just outright buy them, or generally the materials are quite common to drop, so you can buy the materials and craft them even cheaper than you can buy them. And these are going to give you a medium boost rather than a small boost, and this does seem to be quite a big difference. And for the amount it costs, which is literally a couple thousand gold maximum is what I've seen from comments and such, and on my server it's about 300 gold, so just get yourselves upgraded. It's going to be a massive boost in these invasions. And of course, right now, I don't know if we've got many legendaries, if the materials are even in the game yet or whatever. But I personally haven't got these. I'm just using the basic ones, which is the second tier of them. And they work absolutely fine. They do really, really well for me. So I'd certainly recommend getting those and making sure your team has them as well. Now, the next part of the video, I'm going to talk to you about the strategy of the invasion itself and kind of how that works out. Because obviously, you've got kind of the basic tips and tricks on how you can improve yourself and your team. So now I'm going to talk about the strategy. So early game, you want to rotate to bosses when your gate is clear. So not all of the group, but making sure that you've got some ranged DPS people or some people who've got like charge on the great axe so they can rotate quickly. Make sure you grab a couple of haze potions and just rotate around to wherever there's bosses as soon as you've got a free and clear door. But always leave at least 5 or 6 people on one door so that if a boss does spawn, there's people there to contest it until you rotate back. But just have a couple of people that do know that they can rotate to fight bosses, and especially when you've got a flex group, like I said, their group 10, our wall group, we have those flexing and rotating to bosses to help out as and when needed, as well as the siege. So that's going to be really important, and it does help you take way less door damage early on, and that will be really, really good because it means you can stockpile those siege repair parts. Now, as well, having a flex group on the wall that hoard parts for later on, like I said, those 3 players being in that flex group means that they can DPS, they can hoard the parts, and they're not going to have to expend them early, which is really, really good. Also, make sure before it starts that you have at least 2 healers on each gate. I like to put at least 3 on back gate, if not 4, but that's dependent on having 3 groups there, so it's up to you guys how you want to kind of accumulate your groups. If you are going to copy the strategy that I outlined at the start, I would certainly recommend it. It is very, very good as a good setup, as a consistently reliable setup. And that in that case, have 2 healers at each door and 3 in the back. And then with that, have at least 2 grav wells on every door. I really like to have at least 3 or 4. I would always say to people, try and get a great axe with corrupted bane on, because the grav wells are really, really good. Spriggans and brutes anywhere but Windsward can be stopped by a grav well. For some reason, Windsward is bugged, so you guys will see the brutes just charge straight away for us here. But Spriggans can be stopped with the grav wells, or at least slowed down, and normally the brutes can be as well, which is going to give you a huge advantage, as they are the 2 mobs that deal the most damage to the doors. So that, again, that's going to save you parts. It's going to mean you can kill these pretty much most of the time before they even get to the door. And with the brutes, even when they're charging like craziness on here on Windswood, you are still able to kill these guys if you make use of the stamina bar that they have. Obviously, they can be staggered, so make sure you're heavy attacking them until the stamina bar is depleted. When they're staggered, just DPS the absolute craziness out of them, and you should be able to burn them down in 1 stagger, if not 2, and then they'll do very minimal damage to the door as well, which is ideal for what you want. And then, of course, make sure you've got at least couple of void gauntlets on each door if you can, because again the oblivion is super useful. Then when we go into the mid game, you need to remember, again, as I said, the brutes can be staggered, so that's going to be really pivotal. Also, bears should be your lowest priority to kill on a door, as one player can aggro these, divert them around, and so you can kind of just kite these and basically ignore them until you've killed the rest of the mobs, and then DPS them until there's nothing else left. Now, my personal order from highest to lowest priority is the top, Spriggans, then brutes, then commanders, then priests, and then bears, as commanders do less door damage. Same with priests. Priests do a lot more target damage to players, and they do target the players over the doors, so that's why they're above the bears. And then bears least, because they do a fair bit of damage. They can do an AoE and stuff as well, but they do the least door damage. They very rarely even target the doors. It's just going to be onto a tank. If you've got anyone there that can draw aggro, they'll go straight for the players, and so therefore you should leave those till last, but always prioritize Spriggans and then brutes, because they'll do a lot of damage. Then commanders as kind of third place. They'll do a fair bit of damage, but they also like to target players and kind of don't automatically go for the doors, so you can kite them, get a little bit of extra leeway on the door damage there, and that will help you out massively. Now with this as well, you also want to make sure that you're always calling out the siege, which door it's at, and of course, especially when you get the Bison launchers, where they are and when they are being launched in. So there's a Bison incoming, there's a cow inside, whatever you want to say, just so that the team that is protecting the inside, so your team 10, your 3 people that are repairing, protecting the inside and, you know, collecting the parts and such, they know to look inside when you call that there's a Bison incoming. Otherwise, they're not going to know it's there. They may see it on the door by some luck, but always call it. And if you think for whatever reason there's a lot going in, just pop your head through the door, have a little look in the fort, see if it's going on. Always have someone coming from there if you're not going to be having a look yourself as well, so you can take advantage of that and make sure you don't get any damage onto that middle tower early doors, because as you can see from the gameplay here, we managed to get a little bit and it was kind of on edge for a little bit then, wondering where it was coming from, so we locked it in after that and it was fine. But make sure you don't make that mistake as well. And then when you get into the late game stages, then you're going to have the laser eye skull thing that starts shooting at you. Always go left eye first and then right eye. It just makes it easy if you have a consistent plan for that. Or you can switch it around if you've always been doing it the other way around. Either way, make sure you shoot one eye, then the other one. Do not shoot them after they've disappeared, as they will reactivate. And when the skull has lost both its eyes, do not kill it. Leave it up. It basically is staggered. It just looks down at the floor and it just stays in the air but doesn't do any damage. This stays way longer staggered and useless than if you actually fully kill it. If you fully kill it, it reanimates itself, comes back to life, and will start doing damage again much quicker than the staggered version, where it just stands looking at the floor and it just kind of sits there, doesn't do anything for a good few minutes, where you can just leave it and then you do the same again, one eye then the other, and then it does the same. If you kill it off, then it will actually just respawn a lot quicker than that and start doing damage again. So don't ever do that, just leave them and it'll be much easier. And of course, remember that you can kind of block the Spriggans and the brutes a little bit if you kind of stand in front of them, gravel them, block at the etc. You can kind of body block them a little bit to keep them a little bit away from the door, or at least sponge some hits for the doors. So again, you're taking a little bit of that priority and a little bit of that pressure away from your repairs team. Now, you can avoid damage from it by going into the fort as well if you are getting targeted by the eyes laser skull thing. If you go inside the fort and then come back out, you can actually avoid that damage. So if you're not a tank or you've not got a healer on you, bob in there, bob back out, you can heal up and it will just de-aggro from you. And past 20 minutes in, it'll probably get very crazy on every single door. So stay at your doors for the main part, except from that flex group. Make sure the flex group are really focusing on taking out the siege, as that's going to be a massive pressure off, particularly the Bison cannons for the inside team. And of course, the inside team can then focus on repairing the doors, which is going to be the main priority, and essentially keeping you all alive. So hopefully this video has helped you guys out. Hopefully with this knowledge and these tips, you are able to go away, employ this strategy, and actually start to win your invasions and consistently build up a team that knows what they're doing with these and can consecutively win them, so you can keep your upgrades on all your settlements and start to make a good bit of profit, which is of course what we were all all like to do. So if you have found this video useful and informative, please do drop me a like down below, as it really is much appreciated. If you've got any of your own tips that I've missed out from this video that you think would be useful to people, do drop them in the comments below as well. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And if you are new to the channel, like I said at the beginning of today's video, please do drop me a subscribe down below, as we are pushing very close to 13,000 subscribers, and I would love to have you guys here as part of my channel community along for the journey. So please help me out and drop a subscribe. Other than that, guys, that is going to be it for today. So thank you again for watching, thank you for your time, and I will catch you again tomorrow with another upload. Take care, guys, and peace.